Welcome to episode 2 of Agent Advice, the collaborative series between the New Hampshire Insurance Department and the New Hampshire Association of Insurance Agents, also known as the Big I. A goal of this series is to educate producers about the complexities of the insurance industry and to hopefully offer some advice as to how to navigate those complexities. I'm Deputy Insurance Commissioner Keith Nyan, and I'm honored to be joined by Commissioner DJ Bettencourt and Big I President Joan Pageau. Today we'll be discussing some important legislative updates, but before that, we're excited to hit the road in October and November for our 2025 edition of Lunch with the Commissioners. We'll be in Manchester, Dover, Newport, and Littleton. We'll share a meal, give an update on what's going on with the department, provide a brief presentation on upcoming insurance legislation, and take your questions. New this year, you'll have the opportunity to earn 2 continuing education credits, thanks to the help of the Big I. Be sure to register today. The link is in the episode description. Now let's get into some updates from the previous legislative session that impact the insurance industry. Commissioner Bettencourt, what are some of your thoughts from the last legislative cycle and how those are impacting folks this year?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I want to say that the department would not have been able to do the quality job that we did navigating the legislative process last year or earlier this year without your help, Keith. And I do want to share with the audience that Keith was recently renewed for another term as our Deputy Commissioner. It was my honor and pleasure to nominate him, and Governor Ayotte approved that nomination. So Keith, congratulations and thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
So it was a very active legislative session last year, but trying to focus on the initiatives that we know are important to the producer community, we were very involved with the third-party litigation disclosure legislation. We know that that's a big deal. Oftentimes it is a driver of carriers making decisions as to whether or not to remain in a market or to contract their offerings in a market. For me, being a big believer and supporter of transparency, it just makes common sense. The legislature held on to the proposal that was brought forward in January. We'll see where that pans out. My understanding is it's gotten a little bit complicated, and they may not be able to finish that work in time for the deadline for it to be acted upon this coming January. But the issue will not go away. We as a department are going to get involved with it, and hopefully we'll be able to broker a compromise that gets that over the finish line. We know that it's very important, not just to producers, but also for the entities that rely on predominantly liability insurance. I know we're going to get into that later in the program. So we're going to stay on this thing, and as I've said, we're going to see if we can find a way to thread the needle on it. The other thing that we know was of interest to the producer community, we made some changes in what we call our technical bill. And really what that means is it's a big omnibus bill. Every year we go through our statutes and try to find areas where we need to clean up some language, we need some updates to the nomenclature that we use, and try to weed out anything that we know at this point in time is just antiquated. A lot of our insurance statutes were written long ago, which bravo to the drafters of that, of those laws. They have really stood the test of time, but they do need updating, of course, from time to time. So as part of our updating of our statutes, we eliminated a number of fees that we know have been a source of aggravation for producers, particularly with regard to producer licenses. The law was dictating that we charge you all a fee if you got your name changed, which for a lot of our female producers, they do when they get married, or when you move and you need to change your address. It seemed silly to me that nothing really substantive had changed, and yet you were still getting dinged for these small things that required you to update your license. We eliminated all of those fees. I think there were 8 in total, but those 2 in particular stood out to me as being fairly ridiculous. So those are now gone. The other thing that we did, and this is really a hot topic these days, we know that the Medicare Advantage market here in New Hampshire is going through a huge period of disruption. And last year was really the first year where this disruption began to take root. And God bless them, the producers were our first line of information. They were the ones reporting to us what the carriers were doing, whether it was withdrawing from the state or were dramatically narrowing their options. And because this is a program that is entirely run and administered by the federal government, we have here at the state level nothing to do with it. we were caught flat-footed when a lot of those seniors were calling us because they don't make the distinction between what we regulate and what we don't regulate. They see insurance and they call our department looking for help and information. And so out of that experience, out of us kind of being behind the ball, we put forward legislation that required the carriers to tell us in advance if they were going to be withdrawing from the state or if they were going to be dramatically narrowing their offerings. That legislation took effect, I believe it was last week, in fact. And so that's been very, very helpful. But there is a little bit of a tweak perhaps coming in the future, because while the carriers were notifying us of what they were doing, some of that information was still considered confidential. And so we want to perhaps explore how we delineate what's going to be held confidential and at what point that information should no longer be confidential. Because again, we're getting a lot of calls from producers telling us what they're hearing, telling us what their carriers are giving them a heads up in terms of what's coming. And they're asking us to confirm this information. And we're in this awkward spot where we know what they're saying is accurate and it's true, but we don't know whether legally we're able to confirm what they're sharing with us. So we're going to explore that a bit. But I do want to thank all of the producers who helped us both last year and again this year. It's been invaluable. And we're putting some tools in place to be able to be a more equitable partner for you as these disruptions unfortunately unfold. So those are the big three in terms of what we did last session. In terms of what we're looking for or looking to do in the next session, we're really going to tackle that liability insurance issue. It's impacting our behavioral health nonprofits. It's impacting our daycare and childcare providers. And Keith and I learned just last week that apparently it's having a very big impact on our foster homes and foster families. So needless to say, that has our very, very careful attention. So we're going to think about what options might be available for us to bring some relief to what is a very, very hard market for that particular type of coverage. So stay tuned for all of that.
Sure. No, Commissioner, thank you very much. And Joan, I'll transition over to you. We talked briefly before this session began, some of your interests and concerns coming up on the legislative side. And I know the Commissioner mentioned third-party litigation funding, Medicare Advantage, all of these things of great interest to your producer. I'd love to hear your thoughts and maybe even supplement that a little bit with what you're hearing.
Sure. Well, on the third-party litigation financing, that is probably one of the top priorities that we have, not just in New Hampshire, but our Big I national team, the government affairs team, is keeping an eye on this for every state. They know what bills have been submitted, how they can help us to read, understand, react to them, and carrying the banner for the TPLF bill is going to be a top priority for us, because we're not asking anybody to stop what they're doing. We just want them to be transparent so that everybody knows what's happening and who's being paid and where they're from.
Right. Where's the money coming from?
Yeah, because I think most people would be very surprised, I was, that the financing money isn't coming from within the United States borders. It's coming from borders that we probably wouldn't be thrilled with if we knew. So that's very important to us. The Medicare Advantage, Medicare supplements, although what we focus on primarily are property and casualty items, we do have more and more of our members offering the life and health side of the house, and especially the Medicare. And we will be watching all of those bills very closely. Me personally will be watching them very closely, but yes, we will be watching those. And we have some experts in this area that we can draw on, you guys can draw on, so that we can all work together to make the best of all of this.
What I'll add to that with the Medicare Advantage, crisis, might be the appropriate way to characterize it. Obviously, a lot of changes taking place. Consumers more than ever are going to need the help of a trusted resource,
Yes.
A producer who knows the market, who can help navigate some of those not just intricacies, but some real hurdles, I think, in the upcoming year as to what that's going to look like. So relative to that, excuse me, Commissioner, I know we've had some internal discussions about what can we do to perhaps, if not incentivize, make the assistance that will be provided by producers a little more lucrative, I guess, for the lack of a better word. Do you have any comments you'd like to share?
Absolutely. Well, I think there are a couple of really important points that are contained within that one question. So the first, getting to Joan's point, the producers, as I've mentioned before, have been a great partner in terms of letting us know what's going on. And we, in turn, have tried to reciprocate in providing a lot of information in terms of what we know that we're legally able to share. So it's been a great two-way street. We're working hand in glove in terms of getting information out there that ultimately is going to benefit the consumer, who, given the senior population, are going to have a lot of questions. This is a big change for many of them, and obviously that's very anxiety-inducing. The other inquiry that frequently comes up, which as Keith mentioned, is the commissions we know on Medicare are not very good. And so the question that comes into us is there an opportunity for us to be able to get a little bit more financial support as we go through this transition, where we're going to be getting a lot of our customers coming to us needing a lot of help? And the answer to that is probably going to be yes, but what that exactly is going to look like, we're having a very serious conversation internally here at the department as to what that can look like. On the one hand, we don't want to do anything that's going to disincentivize producers from stepping forward, helping us through this time of great turbulence and transition for seniors. So we want to make sure that you're being adequately compensated for what is going to be some difficult work ahead. On the other hand, of course, we don't want this thing to get completely out of control and for people to, and I'm not saying that the vast majority of producers in the state are very ethical and wonderful people, but we don't want there to be an opportunity for anybody to take advantage of the crisis that we're in. So we're, as I've said, having a conversation here within the department, figuring out how we thread that needle. That guidance is going to be coming very, very soon. We are very aware of the Medicare open enrollment period that is coming very quickly and will be upon us very, very soon. So we're going to turn that around, but we know that that's a concern. We want to be able to adequately address that concern, and so stay tuned in the very, very near future.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of our members, thank you for having that conversation, because that's a balancing act that all of those producers have to walk. So,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So as we wrap up, I wanted to kind of touch upon a few different things here. First of all, Joan, you have a big event coming up in October at the Big I.
We do. We have our annual convention on October 6th, 7th, and 8th. It's going to be held at the venue at Port Walk Place in Portsmouth. And we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of educational programs. Keith is going to be here. Unfortunately, Commissioner, I understand that you're going to be out of town.
So I will be at the NHID Northeast Zone Retreat. We've got a lot of items on that agenda that are very pertinent to New Hampshire. And to the producers who may feel a little disappointed, just know my material at this point is getting a little stale. So it's time to bring in Keith.
More insurance jokes.
Bring in some of those classic dad insurance jokes. They're always a big hit here at the department, but Keith will do a phenomenal job for you.
He absolutely will. We'll be having a legislative recap with Will Infantine, Leo Paquin. We're going to bring in at least one, if not two, of our government affairs folks from DC. And we will end with the installation banquet. And we're bringing Justin McKinney back as the entertainment. So you don't want to miss it.
All right, so as we end, I'm going to transition to, Commissioner, what you call a good R&D, which is rip off and duplicate. And this is a shout out to some colleagues down at Triangle Credit Union who interviewed me earlier this year. They had this wonderful segment they called Rapid Fire, which is in an effort so that the audience gets to know two of you better. I'm going to start off with the Commissioner. I'm sorry, ladies first. We're going to ask you some questions. It's not supposed to be difficult. First thing that pops in your head. If you want to elaborate, you can, but quick answers. So, okay. Joan, what's your favorite season?
Fall.
All right. Steak or seafood?
Steak.
And lastly, TV or books?
Oh, tough. Books.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction.
All right. Commissioner, same first question. What's your favorite season?
Spring, everything begins anew.
There you go. Pizza or burgers?
Oh, burgers.
I think I'd go pizza on this one. And lastly, football or baseball?
Oh gosh, those are two great sports. I have to go baseball. I mean, that is my sport.
And because I know your son's probably out there listening to this, Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady?
Oh Lord, listen, it's Brady. I mean, there's no real debate about that. At least not at the current time. My son is a diehard Patrick Mahomes fan, and I blame my wife and I for having him a little too late to enjoy the glory and the prosperity that was Tom Brady.
Got to go with the GOAT.
Oh,
Got
the
to.
GOAT. I mean, there'll just be no other.
Right.
On that note, thank you very much for joining us today. Take care.